Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Obsessive Compulsive Gaming. I am the Obsessive Compulsive Gamer, and this is my review for Death Stranding 2 on the beach. So dear viewers, Death Stranding 2 released recently, and just like that beautiful bearded bastard Barry Bertrum, you're probably wondering,
what is this? What is it? What is this?
Death Stranding 2 on the beach is, rather unsurprisingly, a sequel to, you guessed it, Death Stranding. A game that, just like this sequel here, was a kind of sort of amalgamation of various different video game genres. One could call it a walking simulator, one could call it an action-adventure game, one could call it a shower simulator starring Norman Reedus, and every single one of those descriptions would be completely correct. But how is this sequel? Well, let's review this game the only way I know how, badly. And let us start with this game's story. So, Death Stranding 2 on the beach is set primarily in Australia, 11 months after the events of the first game, in a post-apocalyptic world ravaged by otherworldly creatures. The player controls Sam Porter Bridges, also known as Norman Reedus, a freelance porter, as he and his companions set out on an expedition across the Australian continent to connect isolated survivors and colonies to the wireless communications chiral network in order to save humanity from extinction. So let's move on to what I liked about Death Stranding 2 on the beach. So I just mentioned a little bit about this game's story, and the story is actually rather wonderful. One moment it's very silly, something which you can expect from a lot of Hideo Kojima's games. The next minute it's incredibly emotional. The next minute you're fighting a giant monstrosity of a boss, which is also very exciting. Then we're back to emotional again, then there might be another silly bit, then another epic boss fight. Wash, rinse, repeat, and roughly 30 to 35 hours later, you will roll credits on the game. So I enjoyed the story for this game very, very much. And it actually pays off a lot of things that were set up in the first game. Mostly the relationship between Lou and Norman Reedus. But I don't want to get into too much detail about that, just in case I spoil anything for you, dear viewers, and I absolutely do not want to do that. Now, to go along with that crazy, amazing story, we thankfully have an absolutely remarkable cast here. Everyone from Norman Reedus, to Elle Fanning, to Lea Seydoux, to the absolutely wonderful Troy Baker. Everyone is absolutely fantastic in this game. Even Norman Reedus, who I found to be rather stoic, unemotive in the first Death Stranding. Even he is absolutely magnificent here. He makes jokes, he sings, he cries in the shower. All things which arouse me quite greatly. Special shout out though to Mr. Troy Baker, who is probably my absolute favorite voice actor working in video games today. There's absolutely nothing that this man cannot do. He can play a hero, he can play a villain, he can be reserved, he can camp it up. when it calls for it, and boy oh boy can the man bloody sing. And he sings actually quite a few times in this game. And in fact, most of my favourite scenes in the game were the scenes featuring Mr. Baker himself. Oh, what the hell? It's probably better if I show you what I'm talking about, so here you go, dear viewers. Here's a little glimpse of Mr. Baker in action in Death Stranding 2 on the beach. Absolutely fantastic. What else did I love about this game? Oh, well, yes, I was talking about Mr. Baker and Mr. Reader singing in this game, and that leads me rather nicely to talk about this game's music. So often when you're out exploring the open world, making deliveries, a song will start to play in the background. And just like the first Death Stranding, Hideo Kojima shows off a lot of absolutely magnificent indie music titles that go very perfectly with this game's subject matter, the emotions. But the music score itself is an absolute masterpiece. I'm not going to spoil anything, but let me just say, they take a theme from the original game, which is the theme for Lou, called BB's theme, you know, na 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 na, the one that goes like that, and they use it in very unique ways in this game, and every single time they brought it in, be it a remix or someone else singing it, or perhaps during a boss fight, perhaps, it was absolutely amazing. So the song choices, the score itself, all of it absolutely top notch. But what about that gameplay? Did I just say a minute ago while you're making deliveries? Well, anyone who's played the original game will know that that's what you spend quite a lot of time doing. But thankfully in this game, unlike in the original, you won't be forced into making these deliveries on foot. No, you actually unlock vehicles quite early in this game. And I actually think I spent probably about 95% of the deliveries that you have to do in this game in a vehicle. I was able to use the vehicle to scale mountains, to travel long distances. So I actually didn't get much use out of the ladders and the rope and all the climbing gear you can use if you are going on foot, but that's still an option if you want to make the game slightly longer, take in the beautiful vistas, and boy oh boy are the vistas in this game absolutely stunning. Every single visual in this game is an absolute 10 out of 10. The character models are photorealistic, the lighting, the creature design, everything looks amazing. But we were talking about the gameplay. So yes, you can get access to vehicles, there's a coffin thing you can use as a surfboard, you can put the cargo onto these kind of floating platform thingamajigs and you can tie them together and tie a rope round yourself and drag the cargo. There's an absolute crap ton of side deliveries you can make, which will make the game even longer. So I did say the game was about 30 to 35 hours long, but that was actually just me beelining my way through the story. But have no fear, dear viewers, when I boot up the game again, which I'm going to do as soon as I'm finished this review, I'm going to go back and do all of those side deliveries. See if there's anything extra in there. Of course, you won't just be making deliveries in this game. Like I already said, there are boss fights, and these are absolutely fantastic. Especially the final boss fight, which I'm not going to spoil, but I'll just say that it's a multi-phased affair. And it reminded me of absolutely everything from fricking Godzilla vs. King Kong all the way down to the final boss fight from something like Metal Gear Solid 4. If you played the game, or when you do eventually play the game, which I obviously am going to recommend you do, you'll know what I'm talking about when you get to the end of the game. But I would definitely say, in terms of gameplay, this game definitely 100% has way more boss fights, way more action, way more set pieces than even the original Death Stranding. So if you played that original game and were craving a little bit more over-the-top action, a bit more cheesiness, a bit more Hideo Kojima, then I am very happy to report that Hideo Kojima pulls out all the stops in this game in terms of the action and the boss fights and the over-the-top set pieces. Oh, and I would be absolutely remiss not to talk about this game's many twists and turns. Don't worry, I'm not going to give any of them away, but let's just say this game has more twists and turns than your mother's stomach. Well, I think this review's gone on long enough. No, I have absolutely no negatives about this game. For me, Death Stranding 2 on the beach is bigger, it is better, it is more emotional, it is more action-packed, it has more clever twists and turns than its original. Or should I say, its predecessor. Yes, that's the correct term. It is an absolutely perfect sequel in my eyes. I laughed, I cried, I'm very sure I wet myself at one point. Yes, I can confirm that I actually did wet myself. Bertrum, prepare the washing machine. Death Stranding 2 on the beach is an absolute masterpiece, and if you don't play it, well, then I don't know, Anyway, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, my review for Death Stranding 2. If you enjoyed this little review of mine, don't forget to give me a thumbs up. If you haven't enjoyed it, well then feel free to give me a thumbs down. But please remember the single most important thing I always tell you, dear viewer, and that is to always stay obsessed with gaming. Are you still here? Oh, you must have really enjoyed this video then. In that case, you had better subscribe to the channel and check out our other content. Otherwise, you're a booby pants, and no one wants to be a booby pants.